Hello, I'm Shufang. Welcome back for Lesson 2, Week 11. During this lesson, we are going to learn about how to make a definition. Having become familiar with the types of definition and the standard structure of a definition, the question arises concerning how to make a definition. There are so many different methods of making a definition. How do we use these methods to develop our own definition essay? Can we just copy the definition from a dictionary, a famous person, or are there some other sources that we can use to make our own definition more persuasive to the readers? In order to find out answers to this question, we will pursue the following objectives in Lesson 2. First, to understand the basic principle of making a definition. Second, to become acquainted with various methods of defining a term. Now, let's try to deal with the first task, which is to identify the basic principle of making a definition. Please read the following definitions. Try to think whether the definitions are proper or not. In the first sentence, democracy is the democratic process. We notice that the word democratic is used to define democracy, which is improper because these two words are of the same root. If they are used to define each other, then a circular definition is formed. The same mistake occurs in the second sentence when the writer tries to define astronomer by the same rooted word, astronomy. In the third sentence, the author is trying to define imagination by presenting a long list of abstract synonyms of this word, such as the power to form mental images, the power to form new ideas, the gift to employ image, and the tendency to attribute reality. The readers may be confused with the meaning of these abstract terms, such as power, gift, and the tendency themselves, so they won't be clear with the author's definition of imagination either. Coming to the fourth and the fifth sentence, we notice that the writer's definitions are either loaded with favorable emotional connotations or loaded with pejorative emotional connotations when making a definition for the term state enterprise. Having analyzed the mistakes in these definitions, we can clearly identify the principle for making a proper definition. First, when we define a term, try to avoid circular definitions. Second, we should try to avoid long lists of synonyms if the term is an abstract one. Instead, we may use some concrete examples to make our descriptions clearer. Finally, when defining some social or political concepts, we are supposed to be objective. Try to avoid definitions loaded with our preferences. Now, let's come to the key points of Lesson 2. The methods to define a term. Before we start to give an extended definition, try to ask ourselves these two questions. First, what is our purpose in giving the definition? Second, who might be our audience? Our main purpose is to explain to readers our understanding of a key term or concept, and consequently, to persuade the readers that our definition is a legitimate one. We should therefore pay special attention to our audience. For instance, if we are to define the term patriotism to a group of college students and a group of war veterans, our methods of definition should be different. Generally speaking, there are more than 10 different methods to make a definition, which I have listed here for your reference. Now, let's try to have a detailed explanation of these methods. First, a dictionary definition, or a definition by certain informed people. I have provided two examples here. The first one is the dictionary definition of the term justice, while the second one is Aristotle's definition on imagination. Remember that in a definition essay, this method is only proper to introduce the topic and to hook the reader. We are not suggesting that we develop our definition essay by applying this method only, since that will leave our readers completely bored. Second, linguistic analysis of the formation. We can separate the term into different parts and define each part separately. The explanation of the divided part may make the reader have a better understanding of this term. For example, when giving definition to philosophy, we can divide this term into philo, which means love, and sophy, from sophia, which means knowledge, then define these two parts separately. The third method is enumeration and analysis of the features generally associated with the subject. Using microwave oven as an example, we can define the term by describing its physical features, functions, or use. The fourth method is exemplification. For example, in a definition essay about kindness, we can write about someone we know about. For instance, Mother Teresa, whose benevolence to others illustrates what kindness is. Next method is classification. Sometimes it is easier for us to define a term by classifying or dividing it into different subtypes. For example, in defining the word love, we can classify love to be many different types: parental love, brotherly love, patriotic love, and love of God, pets, beauty, and so forth. The sixth method is comparison. To define a term, we can compare it to other members of its class, and then illustrate the similarities and differences. These differences are special characteristics that make the term stand out. For example, to discuss a Siberian Husky, you can compare it to other dogs, such as lapdogs, mutts, or sporting dogs. Analogy can also be used when you hope to explain something abstract and unfamiliar to the readers by comparing it to something more concrete and familiar. Next method is negation. Apart from explaining what something is, we can also use negation to mention what it is not, to clear the ground for what it is. For example, when defining the abstract feeling of love, we can define it like this. Love is not a gourmet dish, a domesticated animal, or a latest trend. Love is not a strategic defense mechanism, nor the best-kept secret at the Pentagon. The eighth method is origins and causes. We can describe the origin and the background information and historical development of the term to discuss its meaning. For example, the word Quisling, which means a traitor who works for enemies, derives from the name of Major Vidkun Quisling, a Norwegian general who controlled Norway when it was occupied by Germany in World War II. We can also discuss the result effects and uses of the subject in question. For example, what is sharing economy? The sharing economy is a system in which people rent, borrow, or share commodities, services, and resources owned by individuals, usually with the aid of online technology. in an effort to save money, cut costs, and reduce waste. Of course, any combination of the above-mentioned methods can be of great help if we put in mind what is our purpose of definition and who the readers are. Having been introduced to methods for asking a definition, now consider some important tips concerning what we can do and what we can't do when making a definition. First, let's look at the things we can do. First, we should follow a determined structure. We should choose terms we understand to make our definitions or ones that have impacted our own personal experience. Third, if we cannot define a new meaning for some concept on our own, then use the definition that already exists. Remember, we should give our own interpretations of it. Then, let's come to the things we should try to avoid. First, we shouldn't stray from the term we are defining. Second, we should avoid defining a term that is too broad in scope for this essay. Third, it's not necessary to define terms that are well known and without conflicting interpretations. Fourth, we shouldn't forget that examples are very useful. Fifth, we shouldn't copy the existing definition word by word without any reinterpretation. Sixth, we shouldn't make definitions seem biased. Before we finish Lesson 2, let's make a quick summary of today's lessons. By analyzing some common mistakes when making a definition, we have identified the basic principle of making a definition. We then discussed the various methods of making a definition. That's all for this lesson. Thanks for listening. Look forward to seeing you again.